The thing that fascinated me the most was actually the theater bit. So let's talk about this. So I want to talk about this in detail because you do mention it. So in the beginning, you talk about there are various references, say 12th century historical epics like Kalhana's Rajatarangini or Nilmat Puran. But let's talk about this theater. So what is the history of theater in Kashmir? Because this really fascinated me because. To be very honest, I'm not a history guy. I don't read a lot of history. I'm a philosophy guy. So when it comes to philosophy, I might know a lot of things in philosophy. That's my subject. But history, so can we talk a little bit about it? So how was the development of theater then? So it goes to, you're saying, 1500 years ago.
Yeah. So for theater, I'll tell you how it came about. So before this, I have a book which is I'd written this book about folk tales from Kashmir, which is called the Catching the Fading Ray.
Nice.
Now, for this book, I of course spoke with people, aunts and grand aunts, and what are the folk tales that you would usually tell your grandchildren. But a larger part of the stories also came from Raj Tarangni, which is also has many stories, short stories in it. When I read that around 10 years back, I don't know, I had made notes of things that were new to me. And theater is something that was new to me at that time, 10 years back. And I made a small note on one of the post-its. And I don't know what triggered me when I was on this journey of writing the Kashmir that was. I got a little more curious, and coupled with that was the fact that next to our house in Srinagar, there was a huge Bhairav temple. And in that temple, they had a thriving theater group, which was called the Vital Bhairav Theater Group. And as a kid, we would go to the temple not for prayers, but they had a huge garden, a huge ground, and we would play out there, cricket or whatever. But I could see the stage, so it was like a build up. They had a wooden flooring, and then they had these curtains, and behind the curtains they had the masks, they had the dresses, the costumes, the fake hair, and all those ornaments that one uses for theaters. So, as a kid, I never saw any theater because this is 89 and 90. But as you grow, and there are certain images and pictures that I mean, that's for everybody. We all, whatever we've seen as child stays with us. And when you grow, when you become, when you're adults, then you think a little more about it. And that's the time when I tried to mix the two. Did this really happen? Did we have theaters? Was this true? And when and then I'm reading about theaters in Rajtarangani, then it got just a little more curious, and I wanted to club the two, and I wanted to bring this story out because theater was honestly a very, very, how theaters only survive and thrive in a progressive society, in a society where people appreciate art in any form. And in case of Srinagar, you'll be surprised to know, but these theaters happened in Sanskrit language. So you can imagine the audience understood Sanskrit or spoke Sanskrit, or, had that capacity to process that kind of theater. And not just that, there were women as well. It wasn't something theater wasn't only for the privileged few or for the men largely, but the book says that there were women with children sitting and watching theater. So I got inspired a little more about it. And still, theater wasn't only about Srinagar, it went beyond Srinagar to Jammu. It went beyond Srinagar, even to Leh, they had a theater group there. In fact, there were different alignments, like the Srinagar, one of the Srinagar Muslim group was associated with IPSA, the Hindu group was associated with Samaj Sudhar Samiti. So they were all aligned, but they were all working and they were all creating that. And there were companies coming to Srinagar, theater groups from England coming to Srinagar, like the Victoria Group, and theater groups coming from Bombay to Srinagar, and various theater groups, Balrat Sani, and those eminent actors of movie industry were also associated with various theater groups in Srinagar, in Jammu. Om Prakash, the film actor from 50s and 60s was also associated with the theatre
चुपके
group in
चुपके
Jammu.
के जो सबसे फेमस रोल थे.
Ha, right, Jija ji.
Yeah.
So exactly. So they were all thriving. They were all there, and suddenly and every mohalla had a theatre group, you know. And Kushal, in my growing up years in Srinagar, I didn't see it at that level. Kyunki itna tab tak, things had become different. The dynamics were different in the society largely. But this I know from my talking to people, my research that I did, and from, of course, आप जब वो गिरे हुए मार्बल और गिरे हुए सुंदर पीसेस देखते हो तो आपको समझ आता है हाँ यहाँ पे कुछ सुंदर इमारत बनी होगी. So for me, going to Tagore Hall, which was again a beautiful auditorium in Srinagar, from my school when I went there, so I got to see these costumes, and nobody told me then, but now when I read and understand and go deeper into it, I know why it was there, what it was there. So I know that we were living in a really, really very progressive and modern society back in Srinagar. But
You know,
and also, before whoever reads the book, I want to tell everybody that this story, these stories, these facts, these events are are for a time period, are between a time period, like if I say from 1880 till 1980s. That's broadly the timeline I've chosen for these stories. I haven't gone beyond 1980s or 85 or 83.
yeah, which is very interesting, right? Because even in your book, you talk about mimicking, right? Mimicking popular people was a part of cinema.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I don't know any of this. I have
yeah.
never heard it. The only thing when I know the word cinema comes and the word Kashmir comes parallelly to it is वहां पे कोई थिएटर नहीं है, वहां पे पिक्चरें देखने नहीं देते. And when
Hmm.
I read this and you're talking about, oh, there was a time where there was an active theater there, and
Yes.
okay, the past I understand, the historical text would be there, you know, a lot of things and a lot of cultural artifacts, in fact a lot of serious philosophical work also inside the pantheon of Hinduism
Yeah.
does come from Kashmir. A lot of people know. But in this time frame that you have narrated from 1890 or 1880 to 1980 onwards, right? So I mean, I would say 1980, after 1980 would be the scenario where we call the shit hits the roof kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pre that, and all these things are there. But then I just wonder, Avanti, how the hell is something as rich as this is not even spoken about? So even the Kashmiris, I don't. So I'm not necessarily saying the Kashmiri Hindus, the Kashmiri Muslims, the Kashmiri Sikh. I'm not trying to pin a particular community down. What I'm trying to understand is that if you have a culture like this, which is there just before 1980, and even the average Kashmiri doesn't talk about it. I mean, you wrote a book now, but who was talking about it?
Yeah. Yeah. So you've said it right, because the reason for me to put this all there was because I wanted them to know this piece about Kashmir. As I keep saying, that I wanted people to know that there was a time when Kashmir was really romanticized. It wasn't just about, Shammi Kapoor coming and just shooting his movies, but nobody knows that they would spend their summers in Srinagar. And it wasn't just them; the whole family would stay there and enjoy the weather. And the British, they would stay. We all know that they don't come from the same temperatures, and they would want to be there. This is just the physical aspect of it. Over the time, the erosion in the culture of Srinagar, we know how it happened and how it was manipulated and how it was, never, because no, that's how it is selling, no, because nobody wants to know about that good piece of Srinagar. Nobody's going to take it there.